The lockout has ended. The lockout has ended. Baseball is back, and Diamond Diehards is on. Joe Rizzo here, bringing you actual, physical, legitimate baseball, along with Jerry Milani. He had to sub in for the dog Jeff Healy because it's an emergency episode, a short episode of Diamond Diehards. But how could we not jump on the air and get this out to you as the news breaks all over the realm of the world of baseball? The lockout has finished. I believe it was day 100. I'm not positive about that, but I'm pretty sure that it ended up being day 100. Oh boy, I just happen to be wearing my Yankee hat and my Yankee jersey to celebrate. And we bring on with us Jerry Milani, who helped us start this thing already a couple of years ago. And um, Jerry, welcome. Thanks for subbing in for the dog on short notice.
Put me in, Riz. I'm ready to play.
I know it maybe not center field, but we'll
No,
put you in
not
maybe
center
one of the
field.
corners, or
Yeah, the, the,
yeah,
the left out corner. Yes,
yeah, and or DH maybe designated bunter. Here's
yeah.
bunter, bunter, hey bunter. So we did it. We got everybody in a room. I have to believe that ownership was listening to the many episodes of Diamond Diehards where we had to explain to them, look, um, there's a war going on. Get in a room, solve your differences. Let's go. And the details, Jerry, that I have, it looks like they're going to get in all 162 and they'll start April 7th. So this was what was like leading up to the last few days that we heard that if they struck a deal, they'd be able to get all 162 games in. That apparently seems to be the case. It looks like three scheduled doubleheaders, all of the 9 inning variety. No more of the starting extra innings with a runner on second stuff. And I guess there's a few other things that will come out. Technically, it still has to be ratified, but once they've agreed to the terms, I mean that's basically it. Now you're just waiting for signed contracts, and they would never in a million years uh, let this out that there's a deal and then have to renege
Mhm.
on it, right?
Yeah, right. Right. A
I
million
hope.
years. Hell freezes over tour. Welcome back, Eagles. Yes.
Yeah. Um, so as a as someone who also, like me, has been through a few of these, like it seemed like labor strife was the rule rather than the exception for us as in our formative years of
Yeah.
becoming baseball fans. And this is the first time that we were faced with losing games due to a work stoppage. Now, of course, there's been these other crazy events that have happened that have caused it a couple of times over the years, but we were facing it now where we're not. And how soon, Jerry, in your opinion, does the contentiousness uh, melt away? Where a lot of people were digging in as fans and saying, "Oh, well, they're on their own side, they're not on our side," and blah blah blah. Like how long does that contentiousness take to kind of disappear?
I mean, I think everybody's different. In 95, now I wasn't living up in the New York area. I was living down in Baltimore in 94 and 95, and they came back. And maybe part of it is because I wasn't there, but it took me a while to come back. I got to be honest, the beginning of the 95 season as a fan, I wasn't too into it. I really wasn't. I think that the Yankees were good and they made that run and they had that magical postseason run, the well, 2 game run, but those magical games and that kind of maybe pulled me back in. And I don't know how many other fans are like that. I mean, you and I are the most diehard fans along with Dog that I know. Like we're the biggest, and it took me a while. Now the whole landscape of sports is different now. Does it matter that you and I come back, or does it matter that the 27-year-old and the 29-year-old and the 15-year-old who were on the fence about being baseball fans anyway, do they come back? Because that's the future of the game. Is people not 50 year old fans, but the younger fans, they're going to come back to this, and are we going to go through this again in 5 years when this CBA when this expires? So are we just pushing off the inevitable? I don't know. I was really pessimistic yesterday after being so optimistic and getting kind of the door slammed in the face again. And then today, this didn't exactly come out of nowhere. There were some rumblings, but it really came out of nowhere a little while ago that they actually were going to, everyone was on Twitter saying, how can they possibly do this? Joe Posnanski had this whole article came out today about how can they do this? And then, they were able to figure it out. So I'm interested in how they're going to take these doubleheaders and move them, because, the Yankees are playing 4 games in Texas. How are they going to make 4 games up in Texas? They don't go to Texas again during the year. So they're going to have to find 2 single days on a Monday, fly into Texas, play a doubleheader, fly on to wherever, fly back to Texas later in the year, play those other 2 games, and still have 4 other games to make up. So you know what? They'll figure it out. It's not the end of the world. I don't know if they'll add a couple days at the end. I don't know what they'll do, but I haven't been able to digest all the new crazy things, but it'll be a season. And you know what? We weren't sure we were going to have one of those about 2 hours ago at all. I was on a call today with my Stratomatic guys, and we have to plan all different contingencies for what they're going to do with Stratomatic based on what's going to happen with the season. And we were really down today on our call. I got to be honest. We were planning to spread out the season and simulate the season, and we'll still do the first week as we promised we would. We're glad we don't have to do any more of it, that the season's going to start. But this morning, we really didn't think. We thought we were in for the long haul on the sim like we were 2 years ago. And we're thankful that we don't have to be.
Yeah, I was kicking around in my head a few days ago. I'm like, I wonder if they'll try to do like some kind of double headers where a team plays one team in the early game and another team in the later game on a doubleheader. Like I was like, I wonder if that's possible, if they could do that. Like if somebody's in to
It's just
play the
not.
Mets
And
and they
it's
have
not
to play
fair
the
to that
Yankees.
team that has to host though, because they're playing 2 games that day, and the other team's only playing 1. So they
Well,
can't use the same pitching. They can't use the pitching, and they can't.
yeah,
Right. So there's a
but I
disadvantage there of having to play twice in one day where somebody's only playing once.
what if they interchanged it like in the Yankees and Mets? What if say I don't know the Rangers and the Astros? I don't even know which things
Yeah.
which teams who plays who in interleague this year, but like say the Rangers and the Astros are in New York at the same time to play the Yankees and the Mets, and the Rangers and the Yankees play in the afternoon and the Mets and the Astros play in the afternoon, and then they switch and then the Astros play the Yankees at night
At
and the
night.
Rangers
Oh, I
play the
love
Mets at
that. Then
night.
both teams are playing twice as many games. I mean, I think that anything creative is probably not off the table at this moment. I mean, look, in 2020, they got as creative as they could be in terms of where they played the postseason and which games were played and whether they could play with fans or not play with fans. They did everything they could to do it. I mean, something creative and fun like that, you never know if it might fit. That would be some doubleheader in New York, though, huh?
Oh yeah, people I don't think it would matter which 2 teams came in. Like I think people would go nuts, like that nuts. That would be amazing. I mean, it could even be. It doesn't even have to be on a weekend, right? It could be a weekday. It could be a Thursday. You'd be like, "Oh, wow, what is this craziness?" You know?
I'm sure they're
Um,
looking through the schedule and trying to find where the holes are, where the openings are for every team and who their common dates are. And they kind of already know that, because you think about it for rainouts. They don't just the day of a rainout look at the schedule for the first time and say, what will we do if Houston and New York rain out? They already know what the common dates are. There's a chart. I'm sure they have that already. But now they'll have to put it into use right away because they had 7 rainouts.
yeah. Now they have to circle it on the schedule.
They
Like
do
they
indeed.
just got to circle
They
it all
do.
over the place.
Oh,
That's who the big losers are in this one. The schedule makers. That now they're totally under the gun, and under pressure here, having to figure out like what are we gonna do? Like how are we gonna get these other games in? But I guess maybe from team to team, there's got to be a representative that's kind of looking at that already and they're maybe making suggestions to the league to say, look, we have this date, that date, and we have this team coming in, and there's somebody out there that probably came up with a better version of the idea that I just posited,
Well, I
where
think someone's already been looking into it, I'm sure, with the thought of what if we lose 1 week? They've had a week to know what are we going to do if we're going to lose 1 week. They've actually had 3 months to know what are we going to do if we lose 1 week? What are we going to do if we lose 2 weeks? So hopefully there are at least some proposals they can put together soon because look, for the Yankees, their first 7 games were away. So I was going through my groups, splitting up our half the season that we share, me and the Sarahs, all the Sarahs. And it works out if they're just going to start the season on the 7th and just take those 7 games and put them, or 6 games and put them somewhere else. We're unaffected in terms of the start of our season. But the Mets, they have 6 home games, I think, that were scheduled that are now redispersed. I think they were starting at home the weekend before. So I'm sure, they'll figure it out.
they better, because now they're under the gun. I mean, they have some days to figure it out, right? Like they got um, not too many though, right? Because they have to start, or they're going to want to start selling tickets as much as possible, and they have to redo their ticket packages. So there's a lot of, in the wake of what we've seen happen, right? There's all these like other unintended consequences now. Like you gotta on the back end, just to make the games go. You have TV crews, and you have announcers, and you have daily workers, and you have spring training people, and now do the spring training hotels and dorms and everything that they do down there, are they going to be pushed back for a different period of time? How soon can they ramp up and be ready? I mean, apparently it's right now it's 4:18 p.m. March 10th in the East, and we're an hour and 42. We're 102 minutes away from the restart of free agency. And by the way, if the Yankees don't hurry up and re-sign Anthony Rizzo, cousin Anthony here, will be very, very disappointed. I know, Freddie Freeman belongs in back in Atlanta. Let's not mess, with the apple cart. Let's not upset the apple cart there. Let's have cousin Anthony back over here and get moving. But that's the next thing, Jerry. It's going to be the slew of free agents that come in. Before we get to that, we're going to tell you that FMS Graphics is the place that you go for all your printing and promotional needs. FMS Graphics is a family-run, family-owned business for the last 50 years, and they've supported us greatly the last 2 of those years. So for all your printing and promotional needs, it's fmsgraphics.com. fmsgraphics.com for all your printing and promotional needs. And if you are in the Bergen and Passaic County area in New Jersey, you just got blitzed with snow and sleet and all this other garbage, but it's warmed up today, and you better go get all that crap off your vehicle. So go to Big Ed's Car Wash in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. He's got a 108-foot, 18-foot tunnel, the longest you're going to find, and he does everything clean and green. My cars, whenever I go there, they stay cleaner right off the bat and for longer than any other place that I've ever been. Go to Big Ed's Car Wash in Fair Lawn, New Jersey if you're in the Bergen or Passaic County areas. If you live there, as most of our listeners do. I was just checking the numbers the other day. Thank you, TalkShoe, for their new little plug for their new launch and some of their new analytics. We know that a lot of you are in the listening area and you're close enough to check out Big Ed, so go do that and find Big Ed. Just ask for Ed. He's there practically all the time, and tell him Diamond Diehards sent you. If you want to follow us, it's at Diamond Diehards everywhere on social media, including even LinkedIn. If you want to do business like fmsgraphics.com and Big Ed's Car Wash, you can contact us there or anywhere on social media at Diamond Diehards. And if you want to follow Jerry on Twitter, he's at GBP Jerry, Jerry. So you could check him out there. He's a good follow. And he always jumps in to help us out. We'd have him on all the time, but geez, he's way too busy, and it's great that he's somebody that's able to just jump in for the dog. If you want to follow the dog, Jeff Healy, it's Jeff Healy 8, the number 8 on Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe everywhere, YouTube and Apple Podcasts and Spotify and even Amazon Podcasts. That's a new one. We're up there now. So pretty much anywhere that you have podcasts where you go listen to them, you can find Diamond Diehards. And don't forget to tell a friend to tell a friend. Okay, back to maybe I guess we'll I don't know if it'll be our final segment. We're just kind of winging it here. This was an emergency episode that Jerry Milani has so graciously joined myself here, Joe Rizzo, for. So we're not there's no veteran of the day. There's no diehard dads. You go back to the previous episodes, you get all that you could have, and you'll be content with those, especially after the diehard dads from the Wednesday show. So it's 2 days in a row of shows here. So Jerry, the free agent frenzy restarts. There's still a lot of big names on the board. These teams were not able to talk to ownership, I believe, about deals during the lockout. They were prevented from doing or talking business. However, I would imagine that the feelers were long and far by a lot of teams for players that they were interested in beforehand, anticipating the lockout. How big is this frenzy going to be in your guesstimation?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about March 10th and having the season be about a month away. Really, 4 weeks from tomorrow is April 7th. So I think it's everything that would have happened in that whole time frame has to happen really in the next 2 weeks, though. It's not up until, I mean, you may see a signing or two that last week, but the frenzy is going to start tonight at 6 p.m. and I think it's deals that were ready to get done before that just couldn't be announced. Maybe there's some behind the scenes we didn't know about, agents talking, hey, I know whenever this thing happens, here's the framework of something. So even if they really couldn't talk in specifics, they all have their packages ready to go to people. And the first domino falls, the second domino falls, and instead of it taking a week after a signing at a position to see who the next player at that position goes to, it's just going to be a day, and they're going to have to be ready to go. Because I don't think guys want to wait around too long not being in a camp somewhere. I know that MLB players had that camp, and I guess they'll still be able to work out there until they're signed. They had made a pretty good effort to make sure they were keeping going with a good camp situation, but it's not the same as being with your former or new teammates and actually being on those teams. I don't know if they've said yet when preseason games will start. I guess there's an extra week of preseason games now because the season's starting a week later. So that week where they usually go and they end up traveling and maybe playing one of the games in a home park, but on the way home or playing in Miami, that week is now an extra week. So do they just take a week? How do they reschedule that last week? I don't know, but they have an extra week of preseason games to play before the season starts.
Yeah, it's part of that logistical nightmare, the unintended consequences, right? I mean, they're not so unintended because they kind of know at this point, but they do have to make arrangements in all these places in these areas of spring training where these things happen to, they have to accommodate people for a whole other week, essentially. It might not be the full week, but it might be. So we'll see how that pans out. I got to tell you, if I'm a GM right now, I feel like I'm salivating, and maybe I was salivating over the entire lockout, anticipating that it might be better for me if this thing goes kind of like, a little bit almost into right up to the 11th hour. Let's face it, this is the 11th hour. Right? Like it was more than the 11th hour, and they're just finding a way to make up the other games, which I think people want 162. They want 162. They're not gonna be going to Cleveland Guardians versus Kansas City Royals games on August 8th. When it's 108 degrees out with 92% humidity at 36,000 people a game, but they're going to be glad that it's on, and some of us will be as well. But I feel like I'd be salivating because what I want to do now is I want to take this free agent frenzy and I want to take maybe not that top echelon player, but those that next set of players, and I want to sign those players for an extra year than I normally would have at a lower yearly rate than I would have if this was just a regular market. I think there are bargains there to be had where you could get on the good side of some really, really, really nice deals for some excellent players. So you might, to me, if you're smart and you're savvy, you could locate a few guys that could help you and you could pay them the same total amount, but for an extra year, thereby like slashing, your yearly commitment to that player, but having the player, at a lower rate for more years. I really think those are the kinds of deals that are going to be available for a lot of these players. And even there might even be some of these players that you can just go and do another strategy with, which is to sign them for 1 year at a little bit more than other players might make. Like the Angels sort of did that to start with Noah Syndergaard, where they paid him 21 million for a year, kind of taking a flyer on him. Well, I think a bunch of those deals will probably be available when teams are shaken down and they're still unsure about people, and all of a sudden you might be able to ink one of these guys. You're like, this guy's like really good. Like let's just go sign him. We'll pay him 12 million for this year instead of 20 million over 2 years. We'll give him an extra 2 million this year, and then if he's great for us, we'll kick it down the pike and decide to sign him again next year.
Yeah, and I think the 1 and 2 year deals, there weren't that many of them, but those, like you said there, and a couple others were with the understanding that they just didn't know what the other end of this was going to be. Are we going to have more money to work with? We're going to have less money to work with. Are the terms going to change? The value of everyone in your system changes based on what the CBA is. So if there was going to be a change in the number of years you controlled a player, well, even though this is a major league, that's affecting your guys in the minor league. So they went into the first set of these negotiations before the lockout with no understanding really, or a hopeful understanding of what it would be coming out, but with some uncertainty. So now you're out of it. You've got 5 years that whatever this is going to be in place. That's of course pending this, everyone figuring out the international draft, which is the last piece, but at least they'll be figuring it out while they're playing baseball instead of sitting around in a boardroom. Now there's that. We know what the next 5 years are in terms of our salary cap, in terms of our own internal work, and in terms of what the value of our players in our system is. Well, I have that shortstop who I think is ready next year or the following year. Will I have him for 4 years or 5 years or 6 years? And that was in doubt because if the free agency time changed, if the Super 2 changed, all these things, now we know, right? As an owner, as a GM, what the value is based on those figures and your own internal calculations as to those players. So now frenzy's on. There's tons of good players still out there to be placed in spots that fit best, and it'll be one after the other. And you'll see a shortstop go, and you'll see 3 shortstops go, and well, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for frenzy.
You know what the interesting thing is? We started to get into the details of all these things, luxury tax thresholds, 230 million to 244 million a year in the course of a 5 year situation where it's like 2 million in the final year, from the last offer, and the pre-arbitration pool goes from 40 million to 50 million, and the minimum salaries from 700,000 to 780,000 with the 10K increase in the final year. And so they jump off all these things at the end, and all these details are going to be forgotten about in 3 days. The one thing that people are going to remember is there's a universal DH now. Right, in the national DH comes to the National League. So all these details that we're nitpicking over, we're like, how come you can't get this done in the international draft and all this stuff? It's like it's just gone. It's it's gone from the psyche, the daily psyche of the 99.9% baseball fan. And yes, this is Diamond Diehards, but it is a podcast about baseball and about life. So we don't sometimes go so crazy over about the nitty gritty details about baseball. Although I got to say, by the way, Jerry, the Stratomatic ratings show, which I did not have high hopes for, did phenomenal numbers. I
People
didn't.
love their Stratomatic.
I
Look,
don't think I told you that. That show did great number. That was like one of our best shows over the last of the off season. That might have been. I don't know if it was one, but it was like definitely. It was up there. It was
yeah,
up there.
I think that we were sad at Stratomatic in 2020 that there was no season. But the silver lining part was that it reintroduced a lot of people. People went in their attics and they went and got their Stratomatic games out and they played it, and they taught their kids how to play, and they reconnected with their dads and played. And as bad as it was for baseball, because then we don't have a really good 2020 card set. It's a good set, but it's not the same as a full season set. Now people have reset, and they're like, it was high interest in the ratings and things that we released this on Twitter, which was great. Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, the nitty gritty details, even we don't care about a lot of it. I think as human beings, we care that people are treated fairly in their jobs. And I think that's why I think you saw, with exception of a few media members and a few random tweets out there, people generally wanted the players to get a fair deal here. And I think that if people aren't really fooled, I don't think, by some of the tactics of throwing in things in the last minute and saying, here's the deadline and you've got 2 hours to ratify this, and here's your deadline. I know we had 37 days, but here's your deadline now. And I think people kind of got that that wasn't really a true fair offer in some cases on the owner side. But I'm glad that they got close enough together that cooler heads prevailed. I don't know. Someone looked up and said, hey, right now, like you said on the show, there's war, there's all kinds of things going on. People are not gonna care about this if it goes away for a while. And it took a long time, and it took a long time in 1972, which is they only lost a couple of games, but it turned a lot of people off to the game. They lost a lot of people in 1981, and they lost a ton of people in 1995, and now this is a whole new realm. All those years, even 95, I mean, you've got a way more options now in 2022 for entertainment right at your fingertips than you had even in 1995, the last time this happened. So now we got to get back on the horse and start playing.
The explosion of joy on my Twitter feed when it happened was heartwarming. It was reassuring. It was, uh, you could see the elation in people's tweets. I was tweeting in all caps. I think I even wrote this stuff here in all caps. Like on the show. I'm screaming. I'm screaming to the high heavens. People really want it back. Like they feel the connection still, and hopefully what they could start feeling is the younger generations, as some of us old bags work to make it interesting and keep it interesting. I mean, producer Xavier Rizzo sprinted down the stairs. He had just gotten home from school not long before. He's like, I just saw a tweet, the lockout ended, but he saw my tweet. But nevertheless, like he was more excited. Even if he was just excited for me, I think he was just excited in general. And sometimes you don't know what you got or how much you like it until it's about to get taken away from you. And I feel that was palpable in the reactions. I'm not seeing reactions on social media that say, "Oh, baseball's back. I didn't even know it was gone. Fuck those guys." Like I didn't see any of that stuff. Like I saw completely the
Keep
opposite.
scrolling. I'm sure it'll be there. You know what? It's so funny. Twitter is, you'll get the wave of all these, passing and all these people who love baseball, and Cam Miller, all these people who I follow who love baseball and are so excited. that it's back. And then, then I see somebody posting something and calling somebody, well, you're just a shill for the owners and whatever. And Sweeney Murney has to respond to that moron. And it's like, you know what? Sweeney Murney wants baseball to start up more than anyone. Don't whatever. There's someone being negative. So yes, it's a that there's going to be tons of great positive stuff, and then you're just going to have to filter around or block out whatever you want to do. I've been pretty good. I don't get too much negative stuff anymore because I've mostly muted or blocked it. Mute's like the best button ever invented. Like they can scream at you all they want, and they think that you're seeing it, and you're not. It's my favorite button.
By the way, I botched your Twitter handle. It's GB Pack Jerry. I was saying it right, and then I said it as GBP, and I had put it up there wrong, but I think it'll probably be there the right way on the video if you're checking out the video. So it's at GB Pack Jerry. Also elated for the new Aaron Rodgers contract, and the gap between Aaron Rodgers and the next best quarterback in the NFC is not even worth just talking
Not
about
anymore.
because
No,
there is no
I'm having a
second
good
best
week.
quarterback in the NFC anymore.
I'm having a good week now. The whole this whole baseball coming back. Monday night, I fortunate every year I get to work the Thurman Munson dinner, which is just one of the highlights of my year. And it was a smaller one, abbreviated one. There weren't as many press there, but some of the Yankee beat writers were there. Brendan Cuddy was there from NJ.com, and Sweeney Murdy was there covering a couple others, and a couple of the Mets writers were there too. And I just said to them, it's like, guys, whatever you got to do, I got to start reading your reports from Florida. This is this is fine that I see you here, but I want to be reading what's going on in Florida. And they agreed, and they asked me not to put it all on them, but I did the best I could to not blame them, and make sure that they were doing everything they could. But I mean, there's no one wants to be down there more than the people who cover it in the media, and that's for Sweeney, this is his life, this is his thing. Like, there's no baseball, we don't get to hear him on the radio, and he's not working. So happy for the auxiliary people, as you were talking about, also, who are ancillary people who are involved in the game, not directly as team personnel, but as other areas. And I'm heartened that they'll get to all be doing that, and Diamond Diehards has new material to talk about every week, which is exciting.
I know now, and this is like it's our third show in 7 days now, I think, technically. Go check the archives out. We just did a show Wednesday where we were musing about the lockout, but it was another one of these shows where we're trying to put things in perspective, and we talked a lot about a young man who passed in my community here near where I live, a classmate of the triplets, a kid, Charlie Landers, who was all about baseball, and he had a 2-year battle with Ewing sarcoma and succumbed to it on March 8th, and that just puts a lot of things in perspective. He just he all the kid wanted to do was play baseball, and anytime his cancer went into remission, and even when it didn't, he was still out there and working hard, and he just wanted to be there. And to me, that's that's a true diamond diehard, fighting till the end, and just living all about baseball, and just taking in the enjoyment. That was the happy place for a kid who didn't have really much to be happy about. And it puts in perspective like what we're dealing with here. I that made me tired of seeing owners and players arguing over billions and millions of dollars, and how it's going to be divvied up, and the backdrop of the war in Ukraine, where they've been invaded by Russia. We talked about that in the previous show a lot, and we had Jeff Fry, the former Red Sox, Rangers, Rockies, and Blue Jays second baseman, on with us, and that's all. It's like all happened in this last week. So I think that we've ramped up, and we're ready for baseball to be back. We'll talk more about the spring training stuff and the details as they become available. But the emergency episode, we're going to wrap it up there. This a Diamond Diehards short Batting for Jeff Healy, number 69, Jerry Milani at GB Pack Jerry. You can follow him on Twitter. And even though the dog's not here, go follow him at Jeff Healy 8. That's the number 8. You can follow me, Joe Rizzo, at Diamond Diehards on Twitter. And that's the at Diamond Diehards Emeritus. Wherever you go on social media, that's where we are. We had a lot of people jumping in here on the live stream, including Uncle Paul, Schmitty. The dog is tied up, but he was able to window in here for a second, probably while he's taking his bathroom break, and he has his phone in the bathroom. Dave Strochak, my old buddy, jumping on here too, helping up the chat. So if you like that and that's your thing, find us on our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Diamond Diehards, or you just look for us there. We have a page and a group, and we're always posting content and doing our thing that way. Don't forget to subscribe. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, which is where most of you are, and even Amazon Podcasts. Now that's the latest to be added. TalkShoe, anywhere you find your podcasts, we are almost certainly there. And we would love your feedback any way you'd like to give it to us. If you like to rate the podcast online, give it the 5 stars, and write a nice comment and all that stuff, we'd love that. And we hope that you enjoy the content that we bring you. Baseball is back for Jerry Milani. This is Joe Rizzo. Diamond Diehards is out.